Welcome back to Michael Karen's show. My next guest was on the show a couple of years ago, I suppose, Father Zakariyo BOTROS. Father Zakariyo BOTROS, you may not be aware of him. He's known to be the most wanted man in the Islamic world. There is a bounty on his head. So welcome to the show, I think.
Thank you.
Why are you the most wanted man in the Muslim world?
Because they say I'm the enemy #1 of Islam. Because I expose Islam as it is. I read the books of Islam and expose it in front of the people. We have a TV show weekly on Fridays, and I read from their books and I ask, is this your Islam? Islam of terrorism, as it says in the verses of Quran and the hadith of Muhammad? Is that the Quran to kill Christians and Jews? Is that your religion? So, many questions like that. I have 5 main questions.
Before, you're a Christian priest?
Yes.
From
Egypt.
From Egypt. Are you allowed to go back to Egypt?
I hope that I won't, and they want that.
They won't let you?
They want me to be there in order to accomplish their mission.
So you live in exile in the United States?
Somewhere on the global earth.
Okay, okay. You can't be specific. We have many Muslims on the show, and yes. Some believe, some don't, but those who believe will say there are passages in the Quran that are open to interpretation, yeah. And ignorant people will interpret them incorrectly.
Yes.
They will say the same is possible of the Old Testament, but yes. Islam is a religion of peace.
Yes. When I explain the Quran, I don't explain it myself. I go back to their books, the interpretation books of the leaders and sheikhs of Islam, and to read the interpretation from it. But when they compare between the God and the war in the Old Testament and war in the Quran, I say that, first of all, war in the Old Testament was not for preaching the Judaism, the religion. It's not. Islam is. Second thing, wars in the Old Testament is not invading other countries. Islam invades other countries. So the war in the Old Testament is very different than the war in Islam. Totally different. You see, in the Old Testament, it is a government and a religion. So the government should kill people who go astray and against the government. But when Jesus came, completed the vision of religion and separated between state and religion. State is a state, which is with its laws, but religion is a religion of peace. But Islam came back and combined between state and religion and encouraged people to kill, not only the government. And it's a verse in the Quran, encourage the Muslims to kill people who do not believe in Quran and Muhammad.
There are hundreds of millions of Muslims, and the vast majority don't try to kill people who don't believe in their religion.
Yeah. Look, there are some people who do not believe in the religion, yes, and there are some Muslims who are moderate Muslims. I don't deny that. There are many people who are moderate people, but they are not true Muslims. If they follow the commandments of the Quran and the hadith of Muhammad, they will become true Muslims like Bin Laden, terrorists. But the moderate people are wanted too by the fundamentalists. They believe that they are against Islam. They are not Muslims. They should be killed too.
Yet there are many moderate Muslims
yes.
who are putting their lives at risk as soldiers, fighting fundamentalism.
Yes.
Also, for a longest period, the early medieval world, Islam did rule parts of Europe, and it was tolerant. The Ottoman Empire was no worse than any Christian empire.
I don't compare between religions, between the people of religions. I compare between the books of the religion. I compare between Quran and the New Testament, the Bible. What are the commandments here and what are the commandments there? But people are different. They apply the commandments or not. You know, so I don't compare between people. I compare between books of the religions. So all the commandments in the New Testament are for peace and love. No word for killing. But when you read the Quran, you will find, or Quran and Hadith, you will find 53,000 and 213 verses and the Hadith speaking about killing. So we compare.
If a Christian or anyone in Canada wishes to become a Muslim, they can. They're allowed to, and some do. If a Muslim, say in your country, in Egypt, if a Muslim wanted to become a Christian, would they be allowed to?
A Muslim become Christian, yes, it's allowed and welcomed.
So,
but on Christian to become Muslim is prevented.
No. So if a Muslim wants to become a Christian, to leave Islam...
Oh, no, it's prevented, prohibited at all, no. But Christian to become Muslim, okay, it's welcome. But Muslim to become Christian, he will be killed.
Is that the teaching of Islam, or is that some Muslims who are simply acting intolerantly?
There are verses from the Quran and the Hadith telling to kill any person who go astray from Quran, from Islam. Hadith, kill those who go astray from Islam. But moderate Muslims now say, no, it does not say that. It does not mean that. Want to make Islam with a good face. You know that Islam has two faces? Two faces. Meccan face and a Medina face. The first stage of Islam, all the verses of the Quran about peace and love. Because Muhammad was weak, Muslims were weak. They were about 70% only for 10 years. But when he moved to Medina, everything was changed. He became a military leader, stronger. And then he killed people who do not believe in Islam. So, and he canceled all the verses of Mecca, which is they call abrogation, abrogated verses. Deleted all the verses of peace and spoke about the war peace, war verses. War verses.
I understand the difference between a book, a holy text, and people who follow that book. But if we look at history, and many Muslims are watching now, and I know they'll be very upset with what you're saying, but you have that right to speak in this country.
Of course.
In the late 15th century, for example, Spain expelled most of its Jewish citizens who had been there for hundreds of years. They could either convert or leave. They left, and many, probably most of them, went to the Muslim world, where to a very large extent they were welcomed. And many of them went on to become political leaders, and there was some persecution, but generally they faced a much more tolerant society. Catholic Spain inspired by the Bible, and the Muslim Middle East, Near East, inspired by the Quran.
Yes.
By their fruits we shall know them.
Yeah. The Muslim world was to be an empire, and it succeeded in that in the Middle East and in the Middle Ages. Yeah. Succeeded to become a big empire. This is the main or ultimate intention of Islam, to be an empire. And religion is just a factor to establish this empire, to establish government, to establish state. But if we discuss the religion itself, what is the new thing that Islam spoke about as a new religion differs from Christianity and Jews?
Okay, when we come back...